Shawn?
Mike?
What is this? A crossover episode? Yowza, Bowser. You fucked it up, Shawn. You fucked it up. You had one job.
I was so excited.
And you did during my Yowza, Bowser. How dare you? Anyway,
so
hi,
excited.
everybody. We're the Squid Boys, Mike and Shawn, and this is, what is this, a crossover episode, a Bojack Horseman podcast that apparently we can't get the intro right on. How you doing, Shawn?
You know what? I'm doing good, Mike. How are you?
Dude, that's good to hear. I'm doing great. I'm tired, but I'm excited to talk about this episode with you because I actually really like this episode. It is episode 4 of season 2, titled After the Party.
Uh-huh.
It's got a 7.9 rating on IMDb.
Uh-huh.
It's a good episode that kind of takes a sitcom trope idea that a lot of sitcoms do and make it their own a little bit. And it aired originally on July 17th, 2015.
Oh, here we go.
So typically I would go to a website called onthisday.com.
Oh, wait, what?
But
What do you mean typically?
I typed in the date just to see what happened without that on July 17th, 2015. And I have an article from theweek.com. And this is an article that was published on July 17th, 2015. And it's 10 things you need to know today.
Okay.
And I thought that would give us like an interesting, different perspective on that day, as opposed to the same,
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
I have not read any of these 10 things. Full disclosure.
Okay,
So
what if it's bad?
If they're all horrible, I'm sorry.
What if it's...
Number 1, 4 Marines killed by gunmen in Chattanooga.
God damn it.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't worry, the FBI was investigating back then.
Did they find anything?
President Obama, it doesn't say that we would have to go to in the future to know that, Shawn.
Oh, shit. God damn it, you're right.
President Obama commented on the Chattanooga shooting, calling it a, I quote, heartbreaking circumstance.
Yeah.
That's number 2. Number 3, jury finds James Holmes guilty in Aurora movie theater shooting. You remember that?
Oh, I do remember that. That was...
Dark Knight Rises?
Yeah.
In Aurora, Colorado. So they found him guilty. That's good.
That's good to know.
Number 4, Senate votes to overhaul No Child Left Behind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So a sweeping, often controversial education law passed during George W. Bush's presidency.
Yeah.
Basically, it's testing stuff.
Yeah, standardized testing.
Not important. Number 5,
I remember.
European Central Bank gives Greek banks nearly $1 billion in emergency loans.
I actually remember this.
Yep. Those Greeks.
Getting
bailed
out.
out.
Why'd you say it like that? Why?
Getting bailed out.
They just like to party and drink wine.
Exactly.
And
Dionysus,
pray to
dude.
heathen
Crazy.
gods.
Right. Jeez, those Greeks.
They think there's a palace at the top of a mountain. Fucking idiots.
Yeah, come on. Get real.
Let me read my book about the guy that took water into wine.
Yeah. Let me read about my cosmic zombie, okay? Let's just offend all religions today. I'm sorry, Shawn. I'm sorry. I apologize. All fandoms. Let's offend all fandoms, as you like to call them.
Yeah, please get the terminology
we're
right.
only at number 6, Shawn. We need to get through this. We don't need to, but we're going to. Number 6, Obama to prison inmates. It could have been me in prison.
That's so funny. I get what he's saying.
President Obama became the first sitting American president to visit a prison on Thursday when he traveled to Oklahoma's El Reno medium security facility. He told the nonviolent offenders he met with that had things gone differently, he could have been behind bars. Everyone makes mistakes, he said. The difference is that they did not have the kind of support structures, the second chances, the resources that would allow them to survive those mistakes.
God bless America.
God bless America.
Okay. Great thing. Love it. Just very funny out of context.
Just Obama to prison inmates. It could have been me.
Yeah, it's very funny. With the context, great.
Yeah. Number 7, investigators reportedly blame pro-Russian rebels for shooting down flight MH17, the Malaysian Airlines flight. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that. But we all know that was the Bermuda Triangle, so.
Right.
It wasn't the Russians. Russians?
Number 8.
Shooting down planes? Come on.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. No, that's the Bermuda Triangle. Number 8. Japan passes bill allowing it to fight overseas for the first time since World War II.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, what a classic guy.
You know a lot about him?
What?
You know a lot about him?
Yeah, we're good buds. Number 9.
Do you have him tied up in your basement like Gamora?
Oh, boy. Number 9. After Dugar molestation revelations, TLC cancels 19 kids and counting.
Yeah, that was way to suck the air out of the room with that one.
Yeah.
That shit was absolute, God, so gross.
Despicable.
The fact that she was with him and defending him.
Yeah. Weird shit, man.
Yeah.
Weird shit. And then finally, number 10, Game of Thrones Transparent top Emmy nominations.
Man.
Including Best Drama, Best Supporting Actor, Peter Dinklage, 2 nominees for Best Supporting Actress, Emilia Clarke and Lena Headey. And then Transparent, Jeffrey Tambor was nominated for Best Actor and Best Comedy. And Brooklyn Nine-Nine's Andy Samberg was the host of the Emmys that year. So,
that Game of Thrones news is great. That ship will never sink.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
It's gonna be.
That's how we felt back in 2015. I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It's huge, dude. It ended on a great note as well. Looking back in the from the future, everything's great. Everything's great. Everything is great. I got to tell you, the list was a little sleeper until we got to the Greeks.
Yeah, you liked the Greeks? Okay.
The Greeks.
The Chattanooga shooting didn't do it for you, Shawn?
Not really, if I'm being honest with you.
Hey, I'll
do it for you?
I'll tell him to work harder next time. So we're only going to do that one time per season where we're going to check in on the week and things we should know.
Okay.
So next week we'll probably go back to the same shit that we always do.
Anyway,
this episode, After the Party. What do you think of this episode, Shawn?
It's a good episode. It's a heavy episode. I don't think it's a very funny episode.
Oh.
Which is fine. I don't need it to be very funny, My voice is fucked up from all that laughing now.
You don't think it's funny?
I think it's funny, but not really funny. It's really sad in a lot of ways. It's an interesting episode. Just this idea of following the kind of 3 main couples that we have, and seeing a little bit of relationship problems for each of them, and some of them get resolved and some of them don't.
You mean you didn't belly laugh at Wanda's joke?
I liked Wanda's joke.
You did?
Well, the second part of it, I giggled. I was like, oh yeah.
We can talk about it when we get there, but
yeah. When I
have
say
some things to say about the joke.
When I say it wasn't super funny, when I didn't think it was very funny, I mean very funny. This show sometimes is very funny. In this episode, I just thought it was a more serious episode, and that was okay. Yeah. But also, I didn't super connect with a lot of the times when we're doing something really serious in this show. It's pretty easy for me to connect with, and this one was a little more all right, we got relationship drama going on. I didn't care as much.
Shawn doesn't connect with the relationship drama.
Yeah, for me, it was okay. It's maybe
Shawn.
my least favorite part. Well, the relationship stuff might also be maybe my least favorite part of the show. So, for me, it was you know what?
Wow, Shawn hates love. We're
I
recording this on Valentine's Day.
That's
I want you
true.
guys to know.
It's very funny.
We're recording this on Valentine's Day, and Shawn admitting to everybody he hates love.
I do.
It's crazy.
I liked the Princess Carolyn stuff because that was funny, and that's probably the only relationship that I'm super invested in.
Of course. So, we open the episode with Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter coming back from what seemed like a very nice day for Diane's birthday, for her 35th birthday, and Mr. Peanut Butter nailed it, right? She was talking about how it was the perfect day. Now she just wants to relax. But then, of course, he didn't nail it because there is a huge surprise party waiting for her. And they make a pretty funny bit about how he's like, are you sure there's nothing else you want? Yeah. And she's like, no, I don't even want to see anybody. If I had anything else going on today, I'd probably explode. And then sure enough, he has a surprise party for her. And that leads into the intro to the episode, and then we cut back to the party where we see this scene 3 different times, and it's Diane arguing if Tony Curtis is dead, and by arguing, saying she knows he's dead, and Mr. Peanut, and everybody feeling awkward and leaving. And this, it's really interesting, actually, Shawn, because Tara and I have been rewatching How I Met Your Mother, like not like in like a super meaningful way or anything. It's just something we put on when we're just like hanging out, and she'll watch episodes without me, and then I'll come back and be like, oh yeah, this is the part where Barney did the thing. But I've noticed through watching it again, Bojack does a lot of the same like formats and episodes. And it's actually become pretty interesting to me to go, oh yeah, there was this episode and How I Met Your Mother did this first, because there's an episode later on that literally, it's not as sad when How I Met Your Mother does it, but they kind of do like a unreliable narrator deal. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like a Bojack episode. This is crazy. But this one, I recently watched an episode where Lily and Marshall are having a housewarming party, and they cut it up into 3 different perspectives. And you see the same things kind of happen. And that's not exactly what this episode does. This episode just does it at the beginning, and then it just bridges off, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, that's so interesting how like this show, like How I Met Your Mother, which a lot of people would say, oh, it's goofy and it's not like serious, but like how Bojack kind of apes a lot of the weird sitcom formats in their show, which I thought was pretty interesting.
And people might push back on this, but it's because How I Met Your Mother is also a pretty good show. Yeah. It's definitely more of a sitcom, but it also absolutely deals with heavy themes quite frequently, it has some really creative episode structures as well.
It does. How I Met Your Mother is a very good show up until the final season, which I haven't watched Game of Thrones, and we talked about that earlier, but that's my Game of Thrones, where the show just ended in such a way that really just sours you on all of it. Because like Tara and I are watching it, and we'll be like, fucking Robin, because we just hate Robin, and like it's painting how we watch the whole show, knowing how it ends, right?
And that's why I said I think it's at this point it's a little controversial to say that How I Met Your Mother is a good show, because I think a lot of people have painted the ending onto the rest of the show, and I'm like, no, guys, it's still good.
Not to get into like the How I Met Your Mother cast, but the problem is what they do at the end kind of makes a lot of what happens leading up to it meaningless.
That's true. I just mean on like a technical level of how they structure plots and some of the themes they hit on. Like, I feel like that stuff gets discounted because of the ending of the show. The overall plot's a mess, for certain. But
for example, we just watched an episode where they I don't remember what season we're on, but they do this thing where they're like, oh, Ted is the best man at a wedding, and they slowly reveal the wedding, like who it is, and he meets with Barney. Oh, Barney's getting married. And then we just watched the episode where they revealed that he was getting married to Robin, even though in the episode we watched, like he had proposed to his stripper girlfriend.
Yeah.
But you see it and you go, well, this doesn't matter after, you know what I mean? Like, none of this matters. So it's just kind of frustrating.
It doesn't matter. No, for certain.
Anyway,
that's
Bojack
a different
Horseman.
podcast.
We'll start our How I Met Your Mother podcast with Swarles soon.
Yeah.
Because that's what I need, more podcasts.
Yeah, it's okay. He doesn't listen to this, so you don't have to do it.
Yeah, I know. He just turns it on and lets it run.
Exactly.
I want to say during the surprise party, I noticed the banner. that says, "Happy birthday, Diane. Use a pretty font."
I didn't notice that.
And then there's the shirt later that says, where is it? "I had a ball at Diane's 35th birthday and underline ball. I don't know why this is so hard." That's what the shirt says. So I don't know who Mr. Peanut Butter's going to for his print work, but it is not going well.
They're not doing a very good job. I liked when Bojack was like, "We gotta go. We've got a prior engagement." "Yeah, there's a party we have to go to." "Yeah, a prior engagement party."
Yeah, my cousin, his name's Pryor, and he's getting engaged, and they just continue to dig a hole, but they can't. They don't have the chemistry to pull off that kind of deal.
No, they are not a good couple.
No, they're not. It's very clear, right?
Yeah.
The only thing they have in common is that she has the maturity of like a 20-year-old, and so does he. But she has a good reason for it, and he's just stunted emotionally. So it's like that's the only thing they have in common. But before we get to them, we start with Todd and Princess Carolyn, where Princess Carolyn saves Todd from the party, and on the way home, they start talking about the fight, and Princess Carolyn says, "I give them 3 months most." And Todd makes a funny, they're talking about Tony Curtis being dead, and they're not sure if he's dead, which, full disclosure, Tony Curtis died in 2010.
Yeah.
So 5 years before this episode aired. But Todd makes the comment, "His cereal is great," because he thinks we're talking about Tony the Tiger, of course.
Yeah.
Classic
God,
Todd.
I love Todd.
Yep. On the way to her place or the bar or somewhere she wants to get a drink, they almost run over a young boy who looks like Vincent Adultman.
Wait, what?
And by almost, he looks exactly like Vincent Adultman.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And Todd makes the comment, "People look like people sometimes. People always mistaken me for people. Octavia Spencer, the Prince of Cordovia, the Guten Bourbon ad guy. One of those is actually a reference to something that happens later.
Oh.
One is a reference to something that happened previously, and one's Octavia Spencer. So keep that Prince of Cordovia comment in mind."
I was gonna say, isn't Cordovia the country that
that Diane's supposed to go to with
Yeah.
Why can't I think of the character's name?
He's there. Sebastian.
Keaton Michael Key. Yeah. Sebastian St. John?
Clair?
St. Cloud?
St. Clair?
Sinclair. Sebastian St. Sinclair? I don't know what it is.
It is something.
Princess Carolyn goes home and brings Todd with her for some reason. And there's a knock at the door, and it sounds like Vincent. And so she does this funny thing where she says, "He's very jealous, and I don't know what he's capable of. But also stay close because I'll be alone with him, and I don't know what he's capable of."
Well, she's like, "He has a terrible temper. He throws tantrums all the time."
Because he is, in fact, a child.
Todd
enjoys shimmying, so he shimmies down to the car, where we kind of, this is the only one that kind of splits into two subplots here.
Let's just hit the Todd subplot right out, because,
So, Todd is bored, and he's talking to his phone, and his phone asks...
first, before he does that, he sniffs herb.
Oh, yes. He opens... It says herb on it, so he thinks it's, like, weed, but it's actually the ashes of Herb Kazaz.
Yeah.
Princess Carolyn has in her car
For some reason?
Well, at the end of that funeral episode, Henry Winkler gave them to her because they said, "You know Herb better than any of us. Go spread his ashes."
About that. Yep. She hasn't done it yet.
She hasn't done it yet. It's just been in the back of her car. And then he talks to his phone, and his phone asks him, "What is love, Todd?" And then we cut away, but when we come back, Todd is saying, "And when you want to keep the tattoo in the morning, that's how you know it's love." And the phone asks Todd, "Are we in love?" And he's uncomfortable, but then Princess Carolyn's work phone chimes in and says, "No, you're not in love. I'm in love with you." And it goes into this whole thing where Todd's just stuck in the middle of this phone love, and it devolves to them going, "Make us kiss, Todd. We need to kiss." And he's like making the phones kiss.
And then he updates it like.
Well, yeah, and then they find out that his phone is malfunctioning because they need the patch notes to fix the phones falling in love, and very quickly it goes from "Don't patch me, Todd" to "Please update me, Todd. I don't want to feel this pain anymore." And it's just like this ridiculous subplot. With these phones.
This is another area where I can't remember what episode it was, but recently there was an episode where I was like, the Todd subplot, take it out, put it in a different episode. Like it clashes with everything else happening. And I think this is funny, but like
what it allows though is when Princess Carolyn comes back to the car, he can say love is weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole reason it exists.
I don't know if it's worth it. You know? Like
meanwhile, while that's all going on, we have Kevin, which I'm assuming is the real name of Vincent Adultman. And
that would yeah. Did we know that before?
I don't think so.
Maybe not. Okay, yeah. My name's Kevin.
And Kevin is pretending to be Vincent's son, so we get a lot of hilarity with him.
What do you mean? Kevin is pretending to be Vincent's son. No, Kevin is Vincent's son. He said it. No. He told.
You never see him in the same spot.
No, you do. You do. They stand right next to each other. That one scene.
Nope, his face is covered every time, Shawn.
No, but it's him.
But we get a lot of sitcom hilarity where Kevin is distracting Princess Carolyn in multiple ways so he can change back into Vincent and vice versa, including asking for a comical amount of things, and because he's a little kid, she'll give them to him.
She's very nice.
She's very nice to Kevin, but not so much to Vincent.
No.
And this causes Vincent to say some really weird shit to try and like make up for the fact, justify what's going on. I think she calls him a cowboy at one point, and he goes, "I'm a cow man. Wait, I'm a man." I liked that. One point, Kevin says, "All that talk of peeing made me thirsty. Could you get me some water?" Then at one point, Princess Carolyn gets Kevin chocolate, but then Vincent eats it, and he has chocolate all over his face. And she asks why he has chocolate all over his face, because she gave it to Kevin, and he goes, "Well, he had chocolate all over his face, and I kissed him on the mouth and got chocolate on my face." It's like, holy shit. This is so like, oh.
I liked the part where she was like, "Where did Kevin go?" And he's like, "I sent him away because he was being annoying."
Yeah.
You know how kids are annoying? Like when your mom is trying to work through her night school.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
You can tell poor Kevin. He's got a lot of issues going on at home.
Are you all right? I can't wait. I can't wait to learn more about Vincent's son, Kevin.
Princess Carolyn doesn't figure this out. She doesn't.
What do you mean?
She still doesn't figure out that Kevin and Vincent are the same person, but she does feel wrong about it and breaks up with Vincent. And that is the end of that subplot.
For now,
For now.
They'll get back together. It'll be
maybe.
It'll be okay. Vincent is a core member of the cast.
Yeah.
Vincent is extremely important to everything happening. So
Yep. He definitely comes back after this.
We can't. He has to.
He definitely comes back.
If we get to the end of the season and I don't see Vincent again, I quit.
Well. I can't say for certain, but I will be looking forward to your resignation, Shawn.
Oh, no.
I don't remember if he comes back this season or not.
Okay, this season. Okay, that gives me hope.
Or this show. I don't remember.
No. He'll be back because we still haven't seen who the other two kids in the trench coat are. I mean, we haven't seen.
You're right.
Kevin's friends, because Kevin is Vincent's son, and he must have friends, and I'd like to meet those friends.
Okay. Sure enough. Fair enough.
We're going to.
Yep. Anyway, we go now to Bojack and Wanda, and again, it starts off with them in the car talking about Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, but then Bojack makes it about them and how they might be moving too fast in their relationship and moving in together. And like we said earlier, it is so apparent that they are not good for each other or in a good relationship just based on how they act together. But and she's optimistic about it and fine, and he's starting to freak out. What we find out also, Wanda caused the fight between Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane because she literally did not know if Tony Curtis was alive or not.
Of course. Like, it's a funny bit, but it's also something that in everything else got lost for me. Or I was like, oh yeah, she did say that, didn't she? Like, I don't know, man.
You don't like Wanda, is what you're saying?
I like Wanda. I don't know. This episode was just really heavy, and I was just like, man, this is the jokes like that joke. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this into words. I apologize. The jokes didn't hit enough for me to the point where I forgot about most of them, even though I've watched it twice now.
Mm-hmm.
And I only remember like the heavy stuff. So like you saying, oh yeah, Wanda caused the fight because she didn't know who Tony Curtis was. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that was part of it because it's played as a joke in this scene.
Do you remember Wanda's joke she tells?
I remember that it's long and makes no sense, and then later on it comes back and the punchline hits that there's a bag of dirt or something, and the dirt shows up, and I'm like, okay,
it's a terrible joke.
Yeah.
Okay, so they act like in the show that like Bojack's, wow, that is a funny joke. I don't think it's funny.
I don't think the joke
punchline
is funny. I think how bad the joke is funny.
But that's not how they sell it, right?
Yeah,
like,
no, I agree.
First, she tells the first half of the joke, which is basically there's this guy who he always knows how much mulch he's going to have for every job, right? And then at the end of a job, he has one bag left of mulch, and he's freaking out because he's the guy that knows how much mulch to use. And so instead of revealing that to everybody, he throws it off the highway while he's driving down the road, right?
Yeah.
And that's the end of that part. And
yeah.
I like Bojack's commentary on it, where he goes, that's the end. And she goes, it's a thinker. And he goes, yeah, it makes me think you forgot the rest of the joke.
Yeah.
So he has some funny commentary on it. But then later on, she tells the other part of the joke where there's a girl who finds all these old love letters from a former ex, and they're like really funny from like back in the day. And so she thought it'd be funny to mail them to him. Well, then her current boyfriend finds out and gets mad, and he's like a little chihuahua guy. So it's really funny. But he basically is like, oh, like blows it out of proportion and makes a big deal about it. And he drives her home and gives her a kiss, but it's weird. But when he gets back in his car, he looks in the back seat, and what's in the back seat but the bag of mulch that got thrown off the highway.
Yeah.
And then Bojack goes, well, that you're right, that is a funny joke. And she goes, see, some things take time. It's like, wait, what? No, that's like,
no.
Well, no. maybe you know, because clearly from anybody from the outside looking in, this relationship is doomed, right? And so maybe that's what they're saying by saying, oh, some things take time, but then what took the time wasn't worth the time, right?
Yeah.
But they don't explicitly say that, and they don't really hint at that. It's just kind of like Bojack goes, oh, that's a good joke.
Well, Mike, it's a thinker.
No, it's making me think that they don't know what's funny.
It's a thinker.
Another thing she says is she goes, not everything has to be funny. And he goes, no, not everything has to be funny, but jokes have to be funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, the rest of their plot.
Somebody tell me that, dude.
Yeah, somebody needs to tell you that. The other part of their plot is they hit a deer. And of course, in this world, when you hit a deer, it's a guy in a fucking jumpsuit that runs into the woods. And they make the point of going after him. Wanda wants to go after him. Bojack doesn't. But basically, Bojack's like, hey, I'll pay your medical bills. Just let me take you to the hospital. He finally agrees. And it's not really consequential other than to show that Wanda and Bojack value different things.
Yeah.
One thing that was funny.
And it's kind of funny when he's like, you know, he just wandered off into the woods like deer do when they go to keep living.
Right. Or the constant reminder to the guy, maybe just don't stand in the middle of the road in a camouflage jumpsuit. But they go to the waiting room, and there's a funny thing that I like. There's like some hillbilly guy, and he has a giant leech sucking on his shoulder.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. But one thing that's like kind of, this ends with the second half of the joke, and that's how the story ends. But one thing that's of note is while Bojack's in the waiting room waiting for Wanda to come back, he is looking at Charlotte's business card that she gave him at the funeral. Mm-hmm. So he's not feeling that this relationship is right, and he's sitting there like, maybe I should visit Charlotte. Mm-hmm. So that's something to note for future Bojack Horseman, maybe.
I'm curious as to how long, because like we're on season 2 of 6, right?
6 or 7.
I'm curious how long this Charlotte thing is gonna go for.
Yeah, I'm.
Because it feels like it feels.
It feels like
I
what?
didn't know if I didn't know how many seasons of this show there was gonna be, it would feel like the ending that it's building to. Like it would feel like the logical conclusion would be him and him and Charlotte. But knowing that it runs for so long and that they've established it so early, my thought changes to it's just gonna be another bump in the road to whatever the actual end game of the show is.
Yeah, I think
So
you're
I'm
thinking about
curious.
this very long term,
Yeah.
and it's a pretty short term.
Yeah. Which it just the way like again, it's like the way it's set up is like Bojack is looking for happiness and this other life might be happiness, right? And if you don't know how long the show is going to run, then like logically you're like, okay, so he's going to search for this other life and maybe if he's going to be happy, that's how the show would end, right? But knowing that there's 6 seasons of this, it's like I don't think they're going to drag it out for 6 seasons, so clearly that's not what's going to happen.
No.
You know.
No, you'll get to learn more about Charlotte soon. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Bojack part, and then we get to the Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter, and their whole plot basically is just an argument they have about everything that happened. And basically, what we piece together is that, well, not piece together. Diane pretty much tells us exactly how it goes. She's doing dishes, and Mr. Peanut Butter's like, "Do you want to talk about it?" And she says no, but then she goes to talk about it, and basically, she was claiming that Tony Curtis is dead, and Mr. Peanut was doing the, but is he really? We should look it up, and that made her upset. But what really made her upset is his disregard for her wants and needs. That's really what she was mad about, but it blew up in this Tony Curtis thing. There's one thing she says, when you assume you make an ass out of you and Ming. I don't know. Because he goes, who's Ming? And she goes, ah! Yeah. I don't know what that joke is. I don't.
I don't know. I think maybe she misspoke.
No, I think there might be a bit to that later. There might be something where you find out Ming is... I want to say Ming is like a panda bear.
Okay.
I want to say there's like that's in the back of my head. I don't know. I don't know if that's correct or not. So if that comes off as like semi-racist, I apologize.
Guys.
But I
Shawn
think...
here from Gonbu Productions. We're investigating these claims around Mike. We're gonna we got Embracer Group sent over a third party mediator to just kind of look into everything that's happening here, and we'll update you guys when we have more information.
Okay, cool. Anyway, the episode we find out that Mr. Peanut Butter actually did some like thoughtful things for this party. But the idea at the end of the day is having a surprise party for Diane, if you know her, isn't thoughtful at all.
Yes.
But he made her a ballroom, which she said she always wanted a house with a ballroom growing up. And of course, he doesn't understand that means like a actual like giant ballroom, not a room full of Chuck E. Cheese balls.
Pretty funny, though. I do like the ballroom.
And he makes her a Starbucks, which she doesn't love Starbucks, but she likes the convenience of Starbucks. But eventually... they end up in the pool, his bone-shaped pool that he filled with Jell-O, and they continue to argue, even though she doesn't want to and he doesn't want to. But she just exclaims, "I'm not happy," and it becomes kind of this thing because she's planning on leaving and he doesn't want her to leave, and they have all this fight about it, and then he says something that I know you were saying you don't really identify or relate to this kind of scenario, but he does this thing where he talks about how when she's at work, he just sits here and waits for her, and when she pulls in the driveway, it's the happiest moment of the day. And it's like a joke because he's a dog.
I think
it's a joke because he's a dog, but it also is real. And I don't want to talk too like openly about my personal relationships, but like I've definitely been the Diane in that scenario where it is a lot of pressure to have someone like care about you that much. Right. And so I identify a bit more with it than you did, I think. And you're a lot younger than me, so that makes a lot of sense. I just think that is a tough relationship dynamic when it's one person is just so gung ho and you know and just they care about you so much, and it's tough to be that person that's cared. And it sounds like shitty, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's so tough to be cared about, but like sometimes it is. And so I identify with that quite a bit in this scenario. Not to say that any of my relationships have been like Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane. You know, like the people I've dated like that, they're not dogs. You know what I mean? Like it's not this, but it definitely relates to real relationships in a lot of ways, the way people are. And I'm not a lot like Diane in most regards, but in that regard, I'm like, hey, when she says you're never gonna be my number one priority in that way. That's just not how I'm wired. And some people are wired that way, you know? And so it's a really interesting, to me, it hit a little different than I think it did for you.
Yeah, which is funny because for me, what I like I think this is all very well done, and I like everything that happened here at the end. But it's interesting because the path that I went was I didn't feel bad for Mr. Peanut Butter, but I mostly felt like pity for him in that he has nothing going on.
Right.
Like that, it's just interesting that we took very different. You thought more about Diane's half of this, and I was more thinking about Mr. Peanut Butter, and I was like, man, like he really it's unhealthy for him to, in my mind, for him to have nothing else going on.
Right.
And so I felt really a lot of pity for him in that. And
he's also a different kind of scenario because they've made it clear that he doesn't have to work. He has enough money to kind of just do whatever he wants, you know? And so that makes it a completely different dynamic where he doesn't want to work or do that stuff, but then he's just sitting around waiting for her. Well, she does want, she could have millions of dollars and she would still work because she's that kind of person where he has that and he doesn't want to work. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty interesting, dynamic that I don't know if a lot of people run into that, but, at least in that way, but
yeah, it's definitely super interesting. I just part of the reason I think this didn't super connect with me as well, though, is like all of these relationships from the moment they've been introduced, I'm like, that's not gonna last. Like, so there's a certain level of this episode that feels less tragic and more inevitable, if that makes sense at all. Where I'm watching these relationships fall apart and I'm like, this was gonna happen. Like, I've never felt like any of these have been super healthy and long-term dynamics.
I guess the way I think about it is like, I don't know if I know many relationships in general that are super healthy or perfect or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, I think the shock's supposed to come with, okay, well, Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane are married. And so they're the ones that are probably going to make it work because they've invested so hard in each other. But if anything, it shows that, I mean, obviously Wanda and Bojack are a mess. And Princess, like they kind of win by default as well because Princess Carolyn and Vincent, that's a child. We're not going to necessarily see a healthy relationship dynamic for a long time in this show, you know?
I didn't think so, you know?
Yeah. But it's not always about how it ends up, it's how they get there too, you know?
Hey, damn, journey before destination, Mike. That's true. That's true.
All right. So the last thing that happens in this episode is Sir Paul McCartney jumps out of the cake, which they referenced a couple times. And that is, I remember I told you there was a cameo in this show that's voiced by the actual person, which I'm just like, I don't know how they got them to do that.
Wow, that's crazy.
That is actually Sir Paul McCartney.
That is nuts. I can't believe that.
Right. Which is like probably one of the most famous people ever. You know, and this show was successful at this point, but it wasn't like Game of Thrones successful.
This is season 2, you know, as well.
Two.
Like,
yeah. And they just got Sir Paul McCartney to say a couple lines about jumping out of a cake in a new suit, which is just ridiculous. But yeah, so that's how the episode ends. I guess we should go through the categories.
Yeah, but okay. So, what's your favorite animal-based joke?
It's probably the leech.
Okay, I'll
they do a couple.
They
do a couple in the emergency room or the waiting room.
Okay,
that are like that.
I'll probably go with the leech as well because I really can't think of
Also,
much.
Princess Carolyn has some movie posters in her house.
Oh, okay.
The a cat on a hot tin roof, but it's a cat, and she has some books too, like 50 Shades of Russian Blue, the Great Gatsby, the Cat of Monte Cristo. So she has
I like
a lot
the
of
Great Gatsby.
Yeah, the Great Gatsby's good. Best Wet Food Recipes is just a book she has on her shelf.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff there, but a lot of it was all like visual gags. The fish dancing, like the stripper fish dancing in the thing of water. The panda that's a mime. I liked him, even though the only thing that makes a panda a mime in that scenario is, he has black and white fur, so the white and face paint, you know. But so there was some stuff there, but none of it was like, besides the leech, none of it was like super effective, I guess.
I might change mine to the Great Gatsby. I like the Great Gatsby a lot.
Great Gatsby. Also, one other thing. Princess Carolyn's license plate says YOL9LVS. So instead of YOLO, it's you only live 9 lives.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny cat joke there. So,
what is your favorite bit of the episode overall? I don't know.
Yeah,
this is tough thing. Like that's the only real.
To your point, this isn't like a super funny episode. It's not. There's not a ton of wacky humor, but there is, but there's not. Like I guess when it is wacky, like the deer stuff, like it wasn't as effective as they wanted it to be. But yeah, I guess I got to go with the Todd bit with the phones because I just think that's a funny. To me, I know you said like, hey, move this out of the episode, this Todd thing, but it didn't really overstay its welcome to me. I think it was short. If they would have kept cutting to Todd for the rest of the episode with the phones, I would have been like, okay. But I think they kept it the right length and it worked for what it was.
And do you have a favorite quote for the episode?
Princess Carolyn at one point says to Vincent, well, look what the me dragged in. And then she says, is it dragged or drugged? Not a super poignant quote, but something that made me laugh. This like you said, this episode has like it's heavy, but it doesn't have like that heavy monologue deal that like a lot of the episodes have to like pick as an obvious quote.
I think the quote I'm gonna choose is when when Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane are fighting. I just like when Diana's like, I love you. You're a good boy. You're a good boy.
Yeah.
Like
you got a cute little face and you're a really good boy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it to that. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was good. You're right. Good little dog humor there.
Yeah.
All right. So that was episode 4 titled After the Party. The next episode we're going to cover is Chickens. It's titled Chickens. And it's got a 7.8 on IMDb.
Exciting.
I like to look ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
These 3 episodes, the one we just watched and then the next 2, are kind of where the season's doing a lot of setup and they're not my favorite episodes until we get to episode 7.
Okay.
Like these are solid high 7 episodes, like 7.8, 7.9, and then we start to get into the 8s in episode 7.
Okay.
So
I'm excited. You told me there was a little stretch of episodes that weren't great.
It's not that they're bad. It's just
they're just not great.
I'm not a huge fan of this next one in particular, Chickens. If I'm being honest, it's just like a wacky Looney Tunes kind of subplot.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really move the plot forward at all. And it's a commentary on mass production of meat.
Oh, okay.
Like it's
what? As long as it's funny, it'll work.
It's funny, but it's just not my favorite episode. So
yeah.
But tune into that, guys. Woo! What a glowing recommendation that is. Anyway, Shawn, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
On Twitter at Shawn_AFK.
And you can find me on Twitter at Nope, that's not it. You can find me on Twitter at SpikeGhetti Bros and on Twitch at twitch.tv/SuperSpikeGhetti Bros. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening and watching, and we'll be back next week with episode 5, Chickens.
Suck a dick, dumb shits.
I thought you forgot what we were supposed to do.
I did for a second.